Fide.email, you don't need to compromise faith to participate in the modern world. Instead of pushing ads and invasive practices that conflict with Catholic values, we built Fide to reclaim technology for Christendom. When you use Fide.email, you declare your commitment to technology that defends Christian tradition. Join Fide.email today and use technology to advance Christendom.
We know that one of the biggest things that the modernists are going for is the ordination of women. They want the diaconate. And from the diaconate, they'll become priestesses, because once you ordain them into the diaconate, you have no logical excuse for not making them priestesses. And once they're priestesses, you have no logical argument against them becoming bishopettes. You have no argument. And once they're a bishop, well, what's after being a bishop? A cardinal. And what's after a cardinal? This is what they want. There have been numerous organizations fighting for this for a long time. Some of them with like one foot in the secular world and the other in the life of the church. Oftentimes in the secular world, they stand against the good work of the church in opposing grave evils in the culture. And you will find no better example of an enemy of the church than in these organizations among the laity. Never underestimate the power of lay people to do evil things in the church, especially when their entire purpose as an organization is to prove that the church got it wrong for its entire history. Go to Catholic Conclave with the headline, Swiss Catholic Women's Federation votes to remove Catholic from their name, a logical consequence of synodalism. As I've said recently, there's a bunch of scholarship coming out now from some fairly well-known figures who are pointing out synodality is itself heresy. That it is a dismantling of the hierarchical nature of the church as established by Jesus Christ. And they're using the word heresy to describe it. This is, of course, a good example of this in action. Now, you might say, as a counter-argument to what you're about to hear, a group of Catholics who were calling themselves Catholic, but who are really heretics, stopping to calling themselves Catholic as an organization might not be a bad thing. And to a degree, you'd be right. But it also strips them of their mission. It removes the illusion of what they're doing. The details from this article. The delegates of the Swiss Catholic Women's Federation voted by a clear majority to remove the term Catholic from their name. The national umbrella organization is now called something in German that I'm not going to destroy. The Swiss Catholic Women's Federation is now called that. The name includes a slogan, surprisingly different Catholic. At their meeting on May 23rd, the delegates voted 153-5 in favor of the name change. The motion was submitted to the association's board of directors and had generated considerable media attention beforehand. Katharina Jost, designated co-president, summarized the reasons for the name change before the vote. The previous name was cumbersome, and the abbreviated SKF was not understood. The term Catholic has negative connotations and associated with clericalism and the hiding away of McCarrick-type problems by 80% of the population. Thanks to the bishops who did this. They're not wrong by that, by the way. She emphasized that nothing would change in the content and values of the Women's Association. The Women's Association continues to stand for a good life for all. However, we are not managing to present Catholic in a positive light. We believe Jesus Christ would say, "You will not recognize them by their names, but by their actions," Jost said. A vote that sparked spontaneous applause and already served as a barometer for the final vote. This is where the anti-clericalist rhetoric of Pope Francis, Catholic is now a badge of shame. In the discussion before the vote, it became clear that Christian values and the church's roots in the Catholic Church were not questioned by either supporters or opponents of the name change. Despite everything, we are still Catholic. We are not giving up our Catholic identity. It's about the heart of our name. Catholic is more than just a word. It is our foundation, the source of our inspiration and values, were some of the comments from those opposed to the name change. And they are right. They ran away from the name Catholic. It's a little like, somebody asking you, are you a papist? Are you a Catholic? And you say, and you kind of hem and haw about it. You just call yourself a Christian instead. You should never run away from the name Catholic. In that same way, you should never hesitate to try to bring people to the faith and try to get them to enter the church, despite there being Judases in the hierarchy. Approximately the same number of women voted in favor of the name change. We are all still Christians. We finally no longer excluding anyone. Finally, we are no longer excluding anyone because the name Catholic was excluding people. The women were asked to counter the fear that church donors might withdraw support by saying, then he won't receive any more of our services. They have now turned themselves into a protection racket, says CathCon. The main topic of discussion at the meeting was whether and how binding the slogan "Surprisingly Different Catholic" should be in the name. A motion to include the slogan as a visual element of the logo was passed by 100 votes to 57. However, the slogan remains a communication measure for the time being. Whether it should be included as part of the name in the statutes will be decided at the 2026 General Assembly. The individual delegates were free to vote for or against the name change. The new name applies only to the national umbrella organization. The cantonal associations, but your provincial ones, your local provinces, again, Switzerland, as well as local groups are free to choose their own names. 89% of local associations do not have Catholic in their name. The intensity of the discussion surprised but also pleased the board, said outgoing president at the beginning of the meeting. However, some threats from members of church bodies addressed to cantonal or provincial associations, saying they would no longer write letters of recommendation if the umbrella organization were to change its name, were disconcerting. And in some of these, pushback came from bishops. The former president bid farewell with a standing ovation. She had chaired the Women's Association for 9 years, and they elected 2 women as new co-president. This marks the first time the Women's Association has a co-president. That's very synodal of them, by the way. She also represents the first time a theologian has been appointed to the presidency. So this is an organization that fought for women's rights and things, that took the word Catholic out of their name. That's synodality, folks. That really is. The entire point of synodality, part of it is ecumenical dialogue. And this is not just Catholics talking to Lutherans, trying to heal old divisions. That's the kind of ecumenical dialogue that actually makes sense. Trying to heal the divisions caused by schism and apostasy in the church. That makes total sense, and no thinking Catholic argues against it. But the other kind of ecumenical dialogue is essentially ecumenical dialogue with the pagan world and adopting their values as a norm and treating them as if they have anything to teach the church. Well, that goes something Ann Barnhart said in her most recent podcast. One that'll be very too spicy for a lot of people. Not just because of the language she uses in it, but because of the challenge she makes to a lot of commentators. And she asked, to paraphrase her, what in the world do we have to learn from the pagan world as Catholics? What do we have to learn? Nothing. There's nothing. The church has the gospel. The church was founded on the rock of Peter by Christ himself. He explicitly told the apostles, "He who hears you hears me." We know that the offices of the apostles were filled by other men. It shows you right in Acts that happened. We know this happened all throughout history. We have the records to show it. There are patriarchates that go back to the apostles. Unbroken lines of succession. What in the world do we have to learn from those who utterly reject Christ or try to diminish him in some way to being a mere prophet? What do we have to learn from them? And yet this is at the heart of synodality. What do we have to learn to those who reject the very concept of God? You see it in that organization we just talked about. But do you see why all this caused a huge scandal in the last week? I'm very curious what you have to say about this. Live chat is very, very active this morning, which it should be. A couple dissenters from magisterium of the church in the chat. Okay, well, let's take a look. Oh boy. Jesus never said women can't be priests, so you're just assuming. Okay, bye. He chose men. No one disputed that until the 60s. And Janet puts it mildly, saying the only thing we have to learn from the pagan world is how horrible hell on earth is, because hell is life without God, essentially. Yeah. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, please. Like, subscribe. If you haven't, it certainly does help. You can please post a link to her podcast. I'll put it in my show notes today at returntotradition.org. It'll be there in the show notes. I can't, YouTube does not want me to post a link in anything here to something that is on a competing platform. That is absolutely a violation of their terms of service. So let me know what you think about this in the comments, though. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. Sharing this on social media helps a lot, too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.